What happens when a desperate single mother tells the most feared man in Savannah no, and instead of walking away, he lifts her chin and whispers, "I haven't decided if I like that yet." Ava Whitaker never wanted trouble. She only wanted rent paid, her little girl safe, and one honest chance to survive. But one rainy night inside a private auction house dripping with old money and darker secrets, she discovers her stolen painting is worth $500,000. Then Roman Callahan sees her hands and everything changes. This is not just a story about danger, desire, and a mafia king. It is about a woman learning that survival is not the same as freedom. Stay until the end because every secret in this house has a price. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Before Ava Whitaker ever stood in Roman Callahan's studio with his fingers beneath her chin, she had already learned what it meant to be cornered. Not by guns, not by men in dark suits, not yet. She was cornered by rent notices taped to her apartment door, by a refrigerator that hummed louder when it was nearly empty, by the soft cough of her daughter sleeping under a thrift store quilt while rain leaked through the ceiling into a mixing bowl on the floor. Savannah looked beautiful to people who only saw it from postcards. Spanish moss swaying over cobblestone streets, white columned houses behind iron gates, riverboats glowing on the water after dark. Tourists came for ghost stories and wedding pictures and sweet tea in glass jars. Ava knew another Savannah. She knew the bus stop beside the liquor store where the light flickered after midnight. She knew which grocery clerk looked the other way when she counted pennies too slowly. She knew how long she could stretch a jar of peanut butter, how to wash brushes in cold water because hot water cost money, and how to smile at her little girl like none of it was heavy. Her apartment sat above an old laundromat that had not opened in years. The sign outside still said Magnolia Wash in faded blue letters, though half the bulbs were dead and one of the windows had been patched with cardboard. Inside the apartment smelled like turpentine cheap coffee, baby shampoo, and rain. Ava painted at the kitchen table because there was nowhere else to paint. The table had burn marks from the previous tenant and blue stains from every night Ava told herself she was doing the last one. Just one more reproduction. Just one more private restoration study. Just one more commission for Grant Sloan, who always arrived wearing pressed shirts and sympathy that never reached his eyes. Daisy slept in the corner of the bedroom behind a curtain Ava had made from an old floral sheet. 4 years old, all golden curls and serious questions, Daisy had a way of looking at the world as if every broken thing deserved a second chance. Ava tried to be that kind of mother. The kind who made pancakes shaped like hearts even when the batter was thin. The kind who called thunder sky drums so Daisy would not be afraid. The kind who never let her daughter see her cry over bills. That night rain slid down the windows in silver lines while Ava sat hunched over a canvas beneath the yellow kitchen light. She had been working since Daisy fell asleep. Her back ached, her fingers cramped. A smear of Prussian blue marked the inside of her wrist like a bruise. The painting in front of her was not supposed to be beautiful. Grant had called it a stylistic exercise. A private buyer wanted something with the emotional structure of Marion Wren, but not an actual forgery. That was how he phrased it every time. Not an actual forgery, just an homage, just a study, just a way for Ava to keep her lights on. But Ava had not studied Marion Wren the way other people studied her. She had memorized her. Marion Wren painted like someone who understood locked rooms. Her colors looked simple until they started moving under the eye. Her figures rarely had faces, yet every canvas felt like it had been staring back for years. Ava had seen photographs in old art books, auction catalogs, private online archives, anywhere she could find them. Only 9 confirmed Wren paintings existed. No interviews, no portraits, no grave, no signature beyond a small crescent mark worked into the bottom layer of paint. The art world loved a mystery. Ava had loved the work before she understood why. At 2:17 in the morning, she leaned back and stared at the canvas. It was good. Too good. The light carried the right pressure. The shadows leaned inward. The empty space felt inhabited. She hated how much of herself went into work that belonged to someone else. A small voice came from the bedroom curtain. "Mommy." Ava set the brush down at once. "I'm here, baby." Daisy appeared with her rabbit tucked under one arm, curls flattened on one side of her head. Her eyes were heavy with sleep. "The bowl is singing again." Ava glanced at the leak dripping steadily into the mixing bowl. "It is practicing. For church. For Broadway." Daisy considered this with grave respect. "It needs lessons." Ava smiled despite the ache in her chest. She wiped her hands on a rag and lifted Daisy into her arms. "Back to bed, little bird." Daisy rested her cheek on Ava's shoulder. "Are you painting for the fancy man?" Ava carried her toward the bed. "For Mr. Sloane. He smiles weird." Ava stopped for half a second, then kept walking. "Yes," she whispered. "He does." Grant Sloane had found Ava 6 years ago when she was still trying to finish an art history degree she could no longer afford. Back then, she had been using a different last name, living in a different skin, pretending she had not run from a house where every door closed softly and every choice had been made for her before she was born. Grant had seen one of her restoration studies in a student gallery. He said she had a gift. He said real collectors paid for discretion. He said the world was full of people who wanted beauty without paperwork. Ava had been desperate enough to believe him. Now, years later, she knew better. Knowing better did not pay rent. By morning, the rain had stopped. Savannah steamed beneath the pale, sun-wet sidewalks, shining like old glass. Ava wrapped the finished painting in brown paper and tucked it beneath her arm, while Daisy skipped beside her in pink rain boots. They took 2 buses to Grant's office. Sloane Fine Art Advisory occupied the second floor of a narrow brick building near the historic district, the kind of place that looked modest from the street and expensive once you climbed the stairs. Grant liked that contrast. He liked hidden value. Hidden anything, really. His assistant was not at the desk. Grant was not in his office. Ava stood in the doorway with Daisy's hand in hers and felt the first small shift of unease. "Maybe he went potty," Daisy whispered. Ava squeezed her fingers. Maybe. The office smelled like leather chairs, lemon polish, and the kind of cologne men wore when they wanted to seem harmless. A stack of auction catalogs sat on Grant's desk. Beside them was an envelope with Ava's name written across it. Inside were $900 in cash. $900 for 3 weeks of work. Ava stared at the money. Her jaw tightened. She told herself to take it. She told herself not to look around. But then she saw the corner of a receipt beneath a black folder, half hidden, just visible enough to pull at her attention. She should have walked away. Instead, she reached for it. The receipt came free with a soft whisper of paper. Ashford and Bell Private Auction House, Lot 39. Attributed to Marion Wren. Untitled Coastal Study. Estimated value $480,000 to $620,000. Ava read it once, then again. Her ears filled with a dull roar. Daisy tugged her hand. "Mommy." Ava looked at the brown-wrapped canvas beneath her arm, then at the receipt, then at the catalogs on the desk. One had a sticky note marking a page. Her fingers moved before thought caught up. She opened it. There it was. Her painting. Not the one under her arm. The one she had given Grant 3 weeks ago. The one he said was for a private study collection. The one he had paid her $800 for because, according to him, the market had been slow. The catalog listed it as a newly surfaced Marion Wren. Ava felt something inside her go very still. Grant had not just underpaid her. He had turned her survival into a crime. The office door opened behind her. Ava spun. Grant stood in the hallway, umbrella in hand, silver hair damp at the edges. His smile appeared by habit, then died when he saw the paper in her hand. "Ava." She folded the receipt slowly. "How long?" Grant looked past her at Daisy, then back. "This is not a conversation for a child." Ava gave a short laugh without warmth. "Funny. You did not mind stealing from her." His face tightened. No one stole from anyone. You were paid for your work. My work is being sold as Marion Wren." Grant closed the door with careful softness. "Lower your voice." That was the wrong thing to say. Ava stepped toward him, Daisy pressed behind her leg. "You put my painting in an auction under a dead woman's name." A disappeared woman, Grant corrected, and immediately seemed to regret it. Ava caught that. Her eyes narrowed. Grant sighed and set the umbrella aside. "Listen to me. People with real money do not pay for paint. They pay for belief. You have talent, Ava, extraordinary talent. But talent without a name is worth nothing. I created value. You created fraud. I created opportunity. For yourself. For both of us eventually." Ava stared at him. "You gave me $800. And how many people were lining up to give you that?" His voice sharpened, then softened again when Daisy flinched. "I helped you when no one else would." Ava stepped closer. "You found a starving woman and put a price tag on her hands." Grant's expression cooled. For the first time, the pleasant mask slipped enough for her to see the calculation underneath. "You should be careful, Ava. This world is not forgiving. Neither am I." She took Daisy's hand and left before he could say another word. Outside, heat rose from the wet pavement. Daisy walked quietly for half a block before asking, "Are we in trouble?" Ava swallowed. "No, baby. It was a lie." By late afternoon, Daisy was with Mrs. Alvarez from the apartment below, eating macaroni and watching cartoons. Ava stood in front of her cracked bathroom mirror, wearing black pants, a black button shirt, and a borrowed black vest that was too big at the waist. Mrs. Alvarez had asked where she was going. Ava said work. It was close enough to the truth to hurt. Ashford and Bell held its auction inside a private gallery near Forsyth Park behind a white facade and iron gates wrapped in ivy. The kind of place Ava had walked past 100 times without being seen. Tonight, black cars lined the curb. Women stepped out in silk. Men adjusted cufflinks and spoke into phones with quiet impatience. Ava entered through the side service door with a tray in her hands and her heart in her throat. No one stopped her. That was the miracle of uniforms. Wear the right black clothes, keep your eyes down. Carry something people wanted, and the rich made you invisible. Inside, the gallery glowed with amber light. Paintings hung on walls the color of cream. Champagne moved from tray to hand to mouth. Laughter floated above the room, soft and expensive. Ava kept walking. She needed one photograph of the painting on display. One catalog page. One clear record tying Grant to the sale. Then she could decide who to call. A lawyer, a journalist, anyone who still believed truth mattered when money entered the room. A man stepped backward into her path. Ava swerved, but the tray clipped his shoulder. Champagne tilted. Glass flashed. A hand caught the falling flute before it hit the floor. Not fast. Effortless. Ava looked up. For a moment, the noise of the room thinned. The man in front of her was tall, broad-shouldered, and still in a way that made stillness feel dangerous. He wore a charcoal suit over a black shirt, no tie, no visible jewelry except a watch that looked simple until the light touched it. His hair was dark, brushed back without being tame. His eyes were gray-green, cold at first glance, then not cold at all. Worse, awake. He held the champagne flute between two fingers. "Careful," he said. His voice was low, smooth, southern only at the edges. Ava took the glass quickly. "I'm sorry." His gaze dropped to her hand. Paint beneath her nails. Ava curled her fingers against the tray. He noticed that too. For 1 second his expression changed. Not recognition, interest. Then it was gone. Most people in this room deserve worse than spilled champagne. Ava blinked. He stepped aside, cedar and smoke and something clean passing with him as he moved into the crowd. 2 women nearby stopped talking as he passed. A man who had been laughing lowered his voice. Even the security guard near the archway straightened. Ava watched him cross the room and hated herself for watching. A server slipped beside her. "You know who that is." Ava kept her face blank. The woman leaned close. "Roman Callahan." The name moved through Ava like cold water. Everyone in Savannah knew Callahan. Callahan Shipping owned warehouses along the river terminals near the port real estate beneath half the restaurants tourists loved, and enough politicians to make permits appear or disappear. In newspapers, Roman Callahan was called a logistics magnate, a private investor, a philanthropist when cameras were nearby. In neighborhoods like Ava's, people used fewer words. They called him the man you did not cross. A bell chimed near the stage. The auction began. Ava moved along the back wall tray balanced at her hip. Lot after lot sold to people who barely looked awake while spending more money than Ava had seen in her life. Then the auctioneer turned a page. Lot 39. Attributed to Marion Wren. Untitled Coastal Study. Opening bid $100,000. Ava stopped breathing. A curtain pulled back. Her painting stood on the easel under perfect light. Not a print, not a rumor, not a mistake. Hers. The room leaned toward it. The auctioneer spoke about rare emergence private holdings, the emotional architecture of Wren's later period. Ava almost laughed. Later period. She had painted it at 2 a.m. while Daisy slept 10 feet away, and the ceiling dripped into a bowl. 150, 200, 300. The numbers rose like smoke. Ava's fingers began to shake. She set her tray on a side table before it betrayed her. 450. A pause. Roman Callahan raised one finger. The auctioneer smiled. 500,000. No one bid after him. The gavel came down. Sold. Ava stared at Roman. He did not look pleased. He looked patient, as if buying the painting had only been the first move in a game no one else knew they were playing. Then he stood. A murmur passed through the room. Roman walked toward the stage. The auctioneer's smile stiffened. Mr. Callahan, the staff can assist with any private inquiry after the sale. Roman did not stop. A security guard moved from the wall. Roman glanced at him once. The guard stopped. That single look did more than a shouted threat could have done. Roman stepped onto the platform beside Ava's painting. He stood there until the room quieted completely. Then he said, "This painting is not by Marion Wren." The silence cracked. Whispers spread. Heads turned. The auctioneer went pale, then red. Roman looked out over the crowd. "But whoever painted it is here." Ava's stomach dropped. Grant stood near the back of the room, one hand around a glass of untouched champagne. His face had lost all color. He was not looking at Roman. He was looking at Ava. Roman's eyes moved row by row. Slow, certain. Hunting without appearing to hunt. "Step forward," he said. No one moved. His mouth curved slightly, but there was no humor in it. "Or I find you myself." Ava turned before she had permission from her own body. She slipped through an archway into the service hall. Behind her, the room erupted into controlled chaos. Someone called for Mr. Sloan. Someone else demanded an explanation. Ava did not wait for any of it. She moved through the kitchen past stainless steel counters and startled staff, then out the rear door into the alley. Savannah's night air hit her hot and damp. She ran. Her borrowed shoes slapped against wet pavement. Her phone showed 8% battery. No ride app would take the prepaid card she had already overdrawn. Her bus pass was in her denim jacket, which was hanging in the staff room she could not go back to. So she walked. Fast at first, then faster. Every black car looked like a threat. Every reflection in a dark window looked like Grant's face. She kept seeing Roman on that stage, calm as a blade, telling an entire room of powerful people that one of them had lied. By the time Ava reached her neighborhood, her feet throbbed. The city's beauty had thinned into cracked sidewalks, closed storefronts, and porch lights buzzing with insects. Her building sat at the corner under a dying street lamp. The window of her apartment was dark, too dark. Ava climbed the stairs quietly. The hallway smelled like damp carpet and boiled cabbage. Mrs. Alvarez's door was shut. No television noise came from inside. Ava knocked once. No answer. Ava's skin prickled. She moved to her own door. It was not fully closed. She pushed it open. The apartment gave her silence. No cartoons. No Daisy singing to her rabbit. No Mrs. Alvarez humming in the kitchen. Ava stepped inside. Mrs. Alvarez sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes were wet. Terrified. 2 men in dark suits stood near the windows. A third man stood by Ava's kitchen table looking at the painting supplies scattered there like evidence at a crime scene. Roman Callahan turned. Recognition moved through Ava slowly, then all at once. She forgot the men, forgot the room, forgot fear. Where is my daughter? Roman studied her for a moment. So you are Ava Whittaker. Her voice sharpened. Where's Daisy? From behind the bedroom curtain came a small sleepy sound. Mommy. Ava pushed past Roman so fast one of his men shifted forward. Roman lifted one hand. The man stopped. Ava tore the curtain aside. Daisy sat on the bed in her pajamas, clutching her rabbit eyes wide and frightened but unharmed. Ava dropped to her knees and pulled her close. I'm here, baby. Daisy buried her face in Ava's neck. There are men in our house. I know. Are they bad men? Ava closed her eyes. Roman's voice came from the doorway. That depends who you ask. Ava stood with Daisy in her arms and turned on him. Get out. One of Roman's men looked almost amused. Roman did not. He stepped into the room slowly. It was small enough that his presence changed the air. Ava shifted Daisy behind her as much as she could. Roman noticed. His gaze moved from Ava's face to Daisy's fingers clutching her shirt, then back again. I need your hands, he said. Ava laughed once, disbelieving. You broke into my apartment to say that. I also need your eye. You need a warrant. I am not police. No, you're worse. Something flickered in his expression. Not anger, not exactly. Ava held Daisy tighter. Roman looked around the room. The curtain. The thrift store bed. The jars of brushes. The bowls catching rainwater. His eyes stopped on Daisy's paper butterflies taped to the window. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. Grant Sloan told people where to find you. Ava's throat tightened. People. Men who work for the buyer he promised before I took the painting. You were the buyer. I was the buyer who paid in public. He had another arrangement in private. Mrs. Alvarez made a small sound from the living room. Ava looked toward her, then back at Roman. Why should I believe you? Roman reached into his jacket and took out a folded piece of paper. He set it on Daisy's dresser. Ava did not move. Grant had your address, your daughter's name, and photographs of your building in his office. Roman's eyes stayed on hers. He gave them up before midnight. Ava felt the room tilt. Daisy whispered, Mommy. Ava kissed her hair. Roman stepped closer. Ava's voice dropped. Do not come near us. He stopped. That surprised her more than if he had kept moving. For a long second they stared at each other in the dim little room while rain began tapping again against the window. Then Roman said, pack a bag. Number. The word left her before she could weigh it. The apartment went still. Roman's eyes changed, not colder, sharper. He looked like a man hearing music in a language he had forgotten he knew. No, Ava repeated, softer now, but no less firm. You do not walk into my home, scare my neighbor, scare my child, and give orders. Roman took one slow breath. Miss Whittaker, there are 2 ways this night ends. In one, you come with me, your daughter sleeps in a clean bed, and tomorrow morning we talk about money. In the other, Sloane's friends arrive after I leave and you find out how little your locked door matters. Ava wanted to call it a bluff. She looked at Mrs. Alvarez. The older woman was crying silently now. Ava's anger had nowhere to go. Roman's voice softened just enough to make it worse. I got here first. Ava hated him for saying it like that. She hated that it sounded true. She turned away from him and set Daisy on the bed. Shoes, baby. Daisy obeyed at once, too scared to ask questions. Ava pulled a duffel bag from the closet. She packed Daisy's clothes first. Socks, pajamas, the purple sweater with the missing button, the inhaler from the bathroom cabinet, the small bottle of fever medicine. The rabbit stayed in Daisy's arms. Then Ava packed 1 pair of jeans, 2 shirts, her sketchbook, and the cash from Grant's envelope. Roman watched from the doorway without speaking. That silence pressed harder than any threat. When Ava moved past him, he stepped aside. In the living room, Mrs. Alvarez stood. Her face crumpled when she saw Daisy. "I'm sorry, mija." Ava shook her head quickly. "Do not. You did nothing wrong." Roman looked at Mrs. Alvarez. "Forget tonight." His voice was calm, almost polite. Mrs. Alvarez nodded too fast. Ava turned on him. "Do not threaten her." Roman's eyes returned to Ava. "I just protected her. You do not get to call fear protection." For the first time, something like approval moved across his face. "You always speak like this when you are terrified." Ava lifted her chin. "Only when the man scaring me needs to hear it." Roman held her gaze. Then he opened the door. Ladies first. A black SUV waited outside under the street lamp. Rain dotted its polished roof. A man opened the rear door before Ava reached it. Daisy clung to her neck. "Mommy, where are we going?" Ava looked at Roman. He stood beside the open door, unreadable beneath the rain. She did not ask him again. Not in front of Daisy. Not where fear could become a weapon in someone else's hand. She climbed into the SUV with her daughter in her lap. Roman entered from the other side. The door shut. The locks clicked softly. Savannah slid past the tinted windows in streaks of gold and black. Ava kept her face turned toward the glass, one arm around Daisy, one hand gripping the strap of the duffel bag. Roman sat across from her ankle, resting on his knee, watching without apology. After several blocks, he said, "You ran from the auction fast." Ava did not look at him. "I had somewhere better to be. Above a dead laundromat. With my daughter." That landed. She felt it in the shift of silence. Daisy's breathing slowed against her shoulder. The child was almost asleep now, worn out by fear and confusion. Roman looked at Daisy, then back to Ava. "How old?" "4. Father." "None of your business." His mouth curved faintly. "Most things become my business once they enter my car." Ava turned then let us out. Roman held her eyes. "Number." There it was. The word sounded different in his mouth. Not defense. Possession. Ava leaned back against the seat and looked out the window again. The city thinned. Historic streets gave way to wider roads, then darker ones. The smell of the river faded into salt marsh and rain-washed earth. Roman's voice came softer through the dark. "You paint like someone who has spent a long time studying escape." Ava closed her eyes. "Maybe I just like doors. Doors open both ways. Not in houses owned by men like you." For a while he said nothing. Then the SUV turned off the main road and passed through iron gates that opened without a sound. A long drive curved beneath live oaks, heavy with Spanish moss. Beyond them, through sheets of rain, Ava saw the outline of a house rising out of the dark. Blackwater House. Lit windows, white columns, wide porches, a roofline sharp against the storm clouds. Beautiful enough to be mistaken for safe. Daisy stirred in Ava's arms. "Mommy." Ava kissed her forehead. "I've got you." Roman opened the door before the driver could. Rain blew in cold and clean. Ava stepped out with Daisy in her arms and looked up at the house waiting for them. Behind her, Roman said quietly, "Welcome home, Miss Whitaker." Ava did not turn around. "This is not my home." Roman came to stand beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth of him through the rain. "No," he said, "not yet." The front doors opened, spilling golden light across the wet stone steps, and Ava carried her sleeping daughter inside. The light inside Blackwater House did not welcome Ava. It swallowed her. It poured across the marble floor in soft gold, touched the dark wood walls, slid over framed portraits and crystal lamps, and made everything look warm enough to trust. But Ava had learned a long time ago that beautiful rooms could still be cages. Sometimes the prettier the room, the harder it was to find the door. Daisy slept against her shoulder, one small fist tangled in Ava's shirt. Rainwater dripped from Ava's hair onto the polished floor as she stood just inside the entrance, gripping the duffel bag like it was the last piece of her real life. Roman stepped in behind her. He did not hurry. Men like him never had to. The house seemed to adjust around him as if the walls knew his weight and the silence knew his name. Ava kept her eyes forward. A wide staircase curved up to the second floor. A chandelier hung above it, glittering without making the room feel any brighter. Beyond the foyer, tall windows looked out toward the black marshland and the faint silver movement of water in the distance. Daisy stirred. "Mommy," she mumbled, barely awake. "Is this a castle?" Ava kissed her temple. "No, baby, it's just a house." Roman's voice came from beside her. "Depends who you ask." Ava turned her head slowly and gave him a look sharp enough to cut glass. "Do not talk to her like this is an adventure." Roman looked down at Daisy, then back at Ava. "She is tired. So are you. I did not ask for your concern." "No," he said. "You asked where your daughter was." I answered. Ava's grip tightened around Daisy. Before she could answer, footsteps sounded above them. A woman appeared at the top of the stairs. She was older, somewhere in her late 60s, maybe older than that, though nothing about her seemed fragile. She wore a dark silk robe tied at the waist, pearl earrings, and lipstick the color of fresh blood. Her silver hair was pinned back with care. She looked like she had been awakened from sleep and had decided the inconvenience was beneath comment. Her eyes moved over Ava first. Wet clothes, cheap sneakers, paint under the nails. A mother holding a sleeping child with the rigid posture of someone ready to run. Then she looked at Roman James Callahan. Ava heard the name land with the weight of history. Roman glanced up. Vivian. The woman descended the stairs slowly. "You bring a woman and a child into this house after midnight in a storm and you greet me like I am the problem. You are usually the first problem I meet in any room." Vivian reached the bottom step. Her gaze cut to Daisy. For one small moment her face changed. Not softness exactly. Something older, something bruised. "That child is too sweet to belong to you." Roman's expression did not move, but his voice lowered. "If she belonged to me, she would have been here from the beginning." Ava looked at him before she could stop herself. There was something in the way he said it. Not charm, not performance. A blade passing over an old wound. Vivian noticed Ava noticing. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And who are you?" Ava lifted her chin. "Ava Whitaker." "She is a painter," Roman said. Ava turned on him. "I can speak." Vivian's mouth curved at the corner. "At least one of us was told the truth tonight." Roman ignored that. Nora should prepare the east guest room. Vivian did not move. Should she? Roman met her stare, for the child first. That did something. Vivian turned toward the hallway and raised her voice. "Nora." A door opened somewhere deeper in the house. A woman in her 50s appeared, tying a robe around herself as she came. She had soft, brown skin, tired, kind eyes, and the steady look of someone who had seen too much in this house to be easily startled. "Yes, ma'am." "The east guest room." "Warm blankets." "Milk, if the little one wakes. And find something dry for Miss Whitaker before she catches her death in my foyer." Ava opened her mouth. "Thank you, but we are not staying." Roman looked at her. "You are." The words were quiet. Final. Ava shifted Daisy higher on her hip. Vivian watched the exchange with interest, but not surprise. Nora stepped closer, voice gentle. "Come on, honey, let's get the little one settled." Ava did not move right away. Her eyes went to Roman. "If anyone touches her without my permission, I will make you regret bringing me here." One of Roman's men near the door glanced down as if hiding a smile. Roman did not. He held Ava's gaze. "I believe you." That was worse than mockery. It made the threat feel seen. Ava followed Nora up the stairs. The guest room was larger than Ava's entire apartment. The bed sat beneath a canopy of pale linen. A fireplace waited cold against one wall. The windows looked toward the marsh where rain silvered the dark beyond the glass. Nora turned on a lamp and pulled back the covers. Ava laid Daisy down carefully. The little girl curled around her rabbit at once, lashes still wet from sleep. "Poor baby," Nora whispered. Ava straightened. "She scares easy, but she recovers fast. Children usually do." Nora looked at Ava. Mothers take longer. Ava did not answer. Nora crossed to a dresser and opened a drawer. "There are towels in the bath." "I can bring you tea." "I do not need tea." "No one ever needs tea." People still feel better after it. Ava stared at her for a beat. The kindness felt suspicious only because she had not had enough of it lately. "Thank you," she said at last. Nora nodded once and left. Ava waited until the door clicked shut. Then she crossed the room, tested the handle, and found no lock on the outside. She checked the windows. Too high. She checked the bathroom. One small window, also too high, painted shut. Daisy slept through all of it. Ava stood beside the bed and looked down at her daughter. "I am going to get us out," she whispered. Daisy sighed and rolled onto her side. Ava took the towel from the bathroom and dried her hair. Her hands were shaking now that there was no one to aim anger at. She sat on the edge of the bed and listened. The house was not silent. Old houses never were. Wood settled. Rain tapped glass. Wind pressed along the eaves. Somewhere below, a door closed softly. A man's voice spoke one word Ava could not make out. Roman. She knew it without hearing clearly. That irritated her. She did not want to know the shape of his silence or the weight of his footsteps. She did not want to notice anything about him except the danger. But danger had a way of becoming specific when it wore a human face. Ava lay down beside Daisy, still in damp clothes, one arm around her child. Sleep came in pieces. Every time the house creaked, her eyes opened. Every time Daisy moved, Ava's hand tightened. At some point before dawn, she woke to a soft knock. Her body went tense. The door opened only an inch. Nora's voice whispered through the gap. "Miss Whitaker, I left dry clothes outside the door. Nothing fancy, just warm." Ava waited until the footsteps faded before she moved. In the hallway, folded on a small table, were a pair of cotton pants, a gray sweater, and thick socks. Ava stared at them as if they might bite. Then she took them inside. By morning, Daisy woke hungry and oddly cheerful, as children sometimes did in situations that would have broken adults. "Mommy," she said, sitting up in the large bed. "The blanket is soft." Ava pulled the sweater over her head. "I know. Are we still visiting?" Ava paused. "Yes. For how long?" "Not long." Daisy looked around the room. "Can I have cereal?" Ava almost laughed from exhaustion. "Yes, baby, we can ask." They found the kitchen by following the smell of coffee and bacon. It was enormous, with white cabinets, copper pans, stone counters, and windows looking over a wet garden. Nora stood at the stove. Vivian sat at the island with a newspaper and a cup of black coffee. Roman was nowhere in sight. Ava noticed that first, then hated that she had noticed. Daisy clung to Ava's hand until Nora turned and smiled. "Well, good morning, sunshine." Daisy looked up at Ava for permission. Ava nodded. Daisy whispered, "Good morning." Nora placed a plate of toast and eggs on the table. Daisy climbed into a chair and stared at the food as if she had discovered treasure. Vivian watched Ava over the rim of her coffee. "You sleep. Number. Good. It means you have sense." Ava sat beside Daisy, though she did not touch the food Nora placed in front of her. Vivian folded the paper. "Roman does not usually bring strangers into this house. I am not here by choice. I assumed." Ava looked at her. "Then why are you helping him?" Vivian's gaze sharpened. "Careful, girl. There is a difference between helping a man and keeping a child warm." Ava accepted that because it was fair. Daisy picked up a piece of toast. "Miss Vivian, do you live in the castle?" Vivian's face paused, then settled into something almost amused. "I do. Are you a queen?" "Number." Daisy considered her lipstick and pearls. "You look like one." Nora turned away from the stove to hide her smile. Vivian looked at Daisy for a long moment. "Then you may call me Miss Vivian." Daisy nodded solemnly. Roman entered then. The room changed. He wore black trousers and a white shirt open at the collar sleeves rolled to his forearms. His hair was damp, as if he had already showered, already worked, already decided the shape of the day before anyone else finished waking. Ava felt Daisy brighten beside her. "Mr. Roman," Daisy said. Ava went still. Roman looked at the child, and something in his face shifted before he controlled it. "Daisy, you have a big house?" "I have been told." "Do you have pancakes?" Nora laughed quietly. Roman glanced toward the stove. Nora makes better pancakes than I deserve. That is a lot. Vivian answered before Roman could. More than he knows. Roman looked at his grandmother. She did not look back. Ava pushed back from the table. We need to talk. Roman's eyes came to her. Yes, now. He watched her for a second, then nodded toward the hall. After you. Ava kissed Daisy's hair. Stay here with Nora. Daisy's mouth was full of toast. She nodded. Ava followed Roman down a corridor lined with paintings. Not the kind placed by decorators. These felt chosen. Landscapes with storms in them. Portraits of unsmiling men. Abstract pieces that carried more grief than color. The house had taste. Ava hated that too. Roman opened a set of double doors at the end of the hall. The studio faced the marsh and the water beyond it. Morning light entered through tall windows, cool and clean. Canvases leaned against walls. Brushes stood in glass jars. Pigment boxes were arranged on a long work table. The room smelled like linseed oil dust and money. Ava stepped inside despite herself. A painter's room was a dangerous place to impress a painter. Roman closed the door. Ava turned at once. Leave it open. Why? So I can hear Daisy. She is with Nora. I said, leave it open. For a moment, Roman studied her. Then he opened the door again. Ava hated how much that small obedience unsettled her. What do you want from me? Roman crossed to a covered canvas near the far wall. He pulled the cloth away. Ava's breath caught. It was a Marion Wren, a real one. No photograph could carry that kind of presence. The painting was all storm-gray shoreline and a single empty chair facing the water. No figure, no face. Yet the absence in it felt alive. Ava moved closer before she remembered not to. Where did you get this? Roman did not answer. Ava looked around the room more carefully. Another canvas near the window. Another beside the bookshelf. Another above the fireplace. 4 Marion Wren paintings. Her voice dropped. There are only 9. Roman stood behind her, not close enough to touch, but close enough that she felt him in the room. Yes, you own 4. Yes, that is impossible. Most impossible things only require money and patience. Ava turned to face him. You do not care about art. His eyes narrowed slightly. You decided that fast. You bought my painting for $500,000 and exposed it as a fake in the same breath. Because it was a fake. I painted it. I know. The words settled between them. Ava's pulse kicked. Roman crossed to the work table and picked up a large black portfolio. He opened it and removed a mounted photograph. He placed it on the easel. Ava looked. The room disappeared. A woman running through a blue-black passage of shadow. A child beside her, one hand locked around the woman's wrist. Light fell across the ground in narrow bars. Not sunlight, not moonlight. Something colder. The kind of light that made freedom look close and unreachable at the same time. Ava knew the painting. She had known it before she knew the word composition. Before she knew the names of pigments. Before she understood why her mother sometimes stared out windows as if the glass were a wall. She had seen that painting in Warren Blackwell's private gallery when she was a child. She had stood in front of it while adults shouted behind closed doors. She had imagined the woman running was her mother. She had imagined the child was herself. Roman was watching her hands. Ava forced them still. What is this? Roman's voice was quiet. The 10th Marion Wren. Ava laughed once too quickly. There is no 10th. There is. Then why is no one talking about it? Because the man who owns it does not like sharing. Ava looked at the photograph again. Her throat felt tight. Who? Roman stepped closer. Warren Blackwell. Ava kept her face blank through force alone. Roman saw the effort. She knew he did. His eyes had the patience of a man who could wait all day for blood to show through cloth. You know him, he said. Everyone knows him. Not like that. Ava turned away from the photograph. What does Warren Blackwell have to do with you? Roman's expression cooled. He has something that belongs to my family. A painting. Not just a painting. The answer carried too much weight to be only about canvas. Ava crossed her arms. You want me to forge it. I want you to replicate it. Rich men love softer words for ugly things. His mouth almost moved. Can you do it? Number. You are lying. I am refusing. Roman came around the work table, slow and controlled. You copied Marion Wren well enough to make an auction house look foolish. Auction houses see what money tells them to see. I am not an auction house. No, Iva said. You are worse. His eyes held hers. You said that already. I am finding it remains true. For the first time, his mouth curved in something close to amusement. Then the look disappeared. I will pay you $5 million. Ava went still. The amount struck harder than a threat. $5 million. A home with no leaks. Doctors without unpaid bills. A school where Daisy did not have to explain why her shoes were too small. A life beyond counting change at grocery counters. A life beyond fear. Roman watched the number enter her body. Ava hated him for knowing exactly when silence was most powerful. She forced herself to speak. You kidnapped me, and now you are offering me a job. I removed you from a situation that was going to turn lethal. You keep saying that like it makes this noble. I am not noble. At least we agree. Roman leaned both hands on the table. Grant Sloan sold your work as Marion Wren. He promised another buyer access to the artist behind the fake. That buyer works with Blackwell. Ava felt cold spread through her chest. Why would Blackwell care about me? Roman studied her. That is one of the questions I intend to answer. Ava held his gaze, refusing to blink. And if I paint this for you, you take the money. You and Daisy leave Savannah if you want. New name, new life, no Grant, no Blackwell. And if I do not, Roman straightened. The air changed again. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Then you remain here until I decide how much risk your refusal creates. Ava stared at him. So this is a prison. Number. Can I walk out the front door with my daughter? Number. Then you are just decorating the cage better than most men. Something crossed his face then. Brief. Almost like pain, but gone too fast. Before he could answer, a crash sounded from the hallway. Ava moved first. She ran out of the studio and down the corridor. Roman followed. In the kitchen, Daisy stood frozen beside a broken glass. Orange juice spread across the floor. Her lower lip trembled. I did not mean to, she whispered. Nora was already reaching for a towel, but Ava dropped to her knees first. You are okay. It is just glass. Roman stepped into the doorway. Daisy saw him and started crying, not loudly, but with the sudden helplessness of a child who had held too much fear in one small body. Ava pulled her close. Roman stopped where he was. He looked at the broken glass, then at Daisy. His voice came softer than Ava expected. Nora shoes. Nora quickly brought Daisy's shoes from beside the table. Roman crouched several feet away, keeping distance like he had learned from Ava's anger. Daisy, he said. The little girl peered at him from Ava's shoulder. I broke it. I have broken worse. Daisy sniffed. On purpose. Roman looked at Ava for the briefest second. Sometimes. Daisy seemed to think about that. Her crying slowed. Roman reached into his pocket and took out a folded white handkerchief. He held it out, not touching her. For your nose. Daisy looked at Ava. Ava hesitated, then nodded. Daisy took it. It is fancy. It has delusions. Daisy frowned. What is that? A bad habit. Nora turned away again, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Ava did not laugh. She wanted to. That made it worse. Roman stood. Nora will clean the glass. Daisy can come to the studio. Ava's head snapped toward him. Number. There is paper, paint. She can sit where you see her. Ava looked down at Daisy. The child was wiping her nose with Roman's expensive handkerchief, studying the embroidered initials like treasure. Daisy whispered, Can I paint Mommy? Ava closed her eyes for 1 second. Roman said nothing. That silence was another kind of pressure, but this time it was not cruel. It simply waited. Ava opened her eyes. Yes, she said softly, you can paint. Back in the studio, Nora laid a blanket near the windows and set paper washable paints and a cup of water beside it. Daisy settled there with fierce concentration, choosing red first. Ava stood before the photograph of the 10th painting. Roman stood beside her. Neither spoke for a long moment. Daisy began humming to herself. The sound filled the space between them with something fragile. Roman looked at the photograph, not at Ava. "My terms are simple. You paint. You ask for what you need. You do not leave the estate without me." Ava's voice was low. "My terms are simple too. Daisy is not leverage. You do not scare her. You do not touch her without permission. And you do not lie to me about danger if you expect me to believe you about anything else." Roman looked at her then. "I can agree to the first two." Ava's mouth tightened. "And the third?" His eyes stayed steady. "I will not promise what I cannot keep." It should have made her angrier. Instead, it made her wary in a different way. Honesty from a dangerous man was still dangerous. Ava picked up the photograph and studied it. The woman's coat, the child's hand, the bars of light, the blue that was not quite blue. Her fingers tightened. Roman noticed. "What do you see?" Ava almost told him nothing, but the painter in her answered before the prisoner could stop it. "Fear," she said, "but not weakness. The woman is running, but the brushwork is controlled. The child is blurred because the painter loved the child more than the scene." She remembered the feeling, not the anatomy. Roman did not move. Ava continued softer despite herself. "The shadows are wrong on purpose. They do not match the light source. That is why it feels like a locked room even though they are outside." Roman's voice changed. "And the blue." Ava stared at it. "The blue is grief trying to pass for night." For several seconds the only sound was Daisy's brush scratching paper. When Ava looked at Roman, his face had gone unreadable, but not untouched. He stepped back. "I will have the supplies brought in. They are already here. Not everything." Ava glanced at the Wren paintings around the room. "You planned this before last night?" "Yes." "Before the auction?" "Yes." "You knew I might be there." "I hoped." Ava's stomach turned. "So I was never a surprise." Roman looked at her. "You were a surprise the moment you opened your mouth." She hated the warmth that rose in her face. "Do not flirt with me." "I was not. That makes it worse." This time he did smile, barely, but it was real enough to trouble the air. Daisy looked up from her paper. "Mommy, I made a red storm." Ava turned quickly, grateful for somewhere else to put her face. "It is beautiful, baby." Roman walked toward the door. Ava called after him. "Roman." He stopped. She hated using his name. Hated that it felt different from saying Mr. Callahan. More dangerous. More human. "If I do this, I want the money in writing. Not a promise. Not your word. A legal transfer to an account I control." He turned back. "Done. And Daisy and I get to leave when the painting is finished." His gaze stayed on her. "When the job is finished." "That is not the same thing." "No," he said, "it is not." Ava felt the trap beneath the sentence. Roman left before she could answer. The open door showed him moving down the hall, shoulders straight, every step certain. Ava watched until he disappeared. Then she turned back to the photograph. The painted woman ran forever through a passage of shadow, the child pulled close beside her. The light ahead too thin to trust. Daisy crawled over and leaned against Ava's leg. "Mommy." Ava looked down. "Yes, little bird." "Are we safe here?" Ava stared at the photograph a moment longer. Then she crouched, took Daisy's paint-stained hands in hers and pressed a kiss to each palm. "I'm going to make sure of it." Across the room, the real Mary and Wren paintings watched in silence. Ava rose slowly, reached for a brush, and touched the first stroke of blue to the blank canvas. The first stroke of blue did not obey her. Ava knew it before the brush left the canvas. The color looked right in the cup, deep and bruised under the studio light, but the moment it touched the stretched linen, it went flat. Dead. Ordinary. It sat on the surface instead of sinking into it. She stepped back, frowned, and wiped the edge of her wrist across her cheek without thinking. A thin streak of paint marked her skin. Daisy sat near the window with her own paper spread across the floor. Her red storm had become a red house, then a red horse, then something Daisy called a tornado wearing a hat. Nora had brought a small plate of apple slices and peanut butter, and Daisy had accepted them like an honored guest at a royal table. The room was quiet, except for the soft scratch of brushes and the distant hush of rain against the marsh grass. Ava should have felt watched by the paintings on the walls. Instead, she felt watched by the photograph. The woman running, the child beside her, the bars of light across the ground. She mixed more blue, ultramarine, ivory black, a breath of burnt umber, a touch of white. Still wrong. She tried again. Still wrong. By noon, there were 6 failed patches drying along the edge of the test canvas. Ava stood over them with her arms crossed, jaw-tight hair falling loose from the knot at the back of her head. Mommy Daisy said from the floor, "Your face is doing the thinking thing." Ava looked down. What thinking thing? Daisy scrunched her eyebrows and pressed her lips together in a fierce little line. Despite herself, Ava smiled. That bad. Daisy nodded seriously, very bad. Nora appeared at the door with a fresh cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this." Ava accepted it with both hands. "Thank you." Nora glanced at the canvas, then at the photograph. She did not ask questions. Ava had started to notice that about her. Nora saw plenty. She simply chose when seeing needed words. "Mr. Callahan said lunch can be brought here," Nora said. Ava's fingers tightened around the mug. "Mr. Callahan says a lot." "He does." Ava looked at her. There was humor in Nora's eyes, careful but present. "How long have you worked here?" Ava asked. "Long enough to know which questions need answering and which ones need surviving." "That sounds like a long time." "It is." Before Ava could say more, Roman's voice came from the hall. "Nora." Not loud, not harsh. Still, Nora straightened. "Yes, sir. I need the room." Ava turned. Roman stood in the doorway, wearing a dark suit with the jacket unbuttoned, one hand in his pocket. He looked like he had come from somewhere important, and had not brought the importance with him because he already carried enough of his own. Ava moved between him and Daisy by instinct. Roman noticed. His eyes flicked down to Daisy, who had paint on her chin and one apple slice in each hand. "Daisy," he said. Daisy looked up. "I made a tornado." "I see that." "It has a hat." "A strong choice." Daisy beamed. Roman's gaze returned to Ava. "I need to see your progress. You can see it from there." "I can." "Then stay there." Nora lowered her eyes, not quite hiding her expression. Roman walked in anyway, but he stopped several feet from Ava. Not close. Not challenging. The restraint irritated her more than arrogance would have. He studied the canvas. "The blue is wrong." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Thank you. I thought it was perfect and was planning to retire." His mouth twitched. "It is too clean." That is not a technical note. It is still true. Ava set the coffee down. "You know paint now." "My mother painted." "You mentioned that." "She used to say blue is where painters hide their lies." Ava looked at him despite herself. Roman's face was angled towards the canvas. Something in his expression had gone quieter, less guarded, as if the memory had entered the room before he could stop it. "What does that mean?" Ava asked. "It means most people paint night when they do not want to paint grief." Ava said nothing. The comment should have sounded rehearsed. It did not. It sounded like something he had heard as a boy and carried too long. Daisy crawled closer with her paper. "Mr. Roman, do you want to see my tornado?" Ava turned quickly. "Daisy, baby Mr. Callahan is busy." Roman looked down. "I can see it." Daisy held up the paper. Roman crouched. Ava went still. He lowered himself slowly, careful to keep distance, and took the painting from Daisy as if it were evidence in a holy trial. His large hands looked strange, holding the wrinkled paper. Too dangerous for something so innocent. He studied it. "The hat improves it." Daisy leaned forward. "That is what I said." Roman nodded gravely. "You were right." Daisy smiled so wide that Ava had to look away. It was not fair, that smile. It made the room less simple. It made Roman less simple. And Ava needed him simple. Dangerous man. Locked gates, bad idea. Simple. Daisy reached for a blue paint cup and knocked it sideways. Paint spread across the floor and touched the edge of Roman's shoe. Ava moved. Roman was faster. He caught the cup before it spilled completely, then looked at the blue mark on his polished leather shoe. Daisy gasped. "I'm sorry." Roman looked at the shoe, then at her. It needed color. Daisy stared. "You are not mad." "Number. Mommy gets mad when paint gets on shoes." Ava crossed her arms. "Mommy owns one pair of shoes." Roman glanced at Ava's sneakers. The look lasted half a second too long. Then he turned back to Daisy. "Nora can find you a smock." Daisy blinked. "What is a smock?" "A shirt that knows it is going to lose." Daisy giggled. Ava's chest tightened again. Roman rose and handed the paper back to Daisy. "Nora," he said, still looking at Ava, "take Daisy to the garden for a little while." Ava stiffened. "Number." Roman's voice stayed even. "She will be within sight of the windows." I said no. Daisy touched Ava's leg. "Mommy, can I see the garden?" Ava looked down at her daughter's hopeful face and felt the trap of gentleness close around her. Daisy had been dragged from her bed, brought into a stranger's mansion, and still she wanted flowers. Ava crouched. "You stay with Nora. You do not go near the water. You do not go anywhere I cannot see you." Daisy nodded. "I promise." Nora held out a hand. Daisy took it, then turned back to Roman. "Do not touch my tornado." "I would not dare." Daisy marched out beside Nora, paper held to her chest. The studio seemed larger after she left. Ava turned to Roman. "If you send her out of my sight again without asking me first, I will walk out of this room, and you can paint your own ghost." Roman's eyes held hers. I asked, "You arranged?" "There is a difference. To men like you, probably not." He stepped closer to the canvas, ignoring the insult or storing it for later. Ava could not tell. He leaned over the row of blue tests. "Add lead white." Ava laughed. "That is your expert advice." "Yes. Lead white is dangerous." "So am I. Use a small amount." She looked at him. He looked back. The room warmed in a way that had nothing to do with sunlight. Ava reached for the pigment jar mostly to break eye contact. She mixed the smallest amount into the blue, then thinned it with oil. Her brush moved across the test strip. The color changed. Not dramatically. Not enough for someone like Grant Sloane to notice. But Ava saw it. The blue took on weight, depth, a faint inner damage. She stopped breathing for half a second. Roman watched her face. "There it is," he said. Ava set the brush down carefully. "How did you know?" "My mother used it when she wanted light to look trapped." Ava turned toward him. "Where are her paintings?" Roman's expression closed. "You are standing in a room full of paintings." "That is not what I asked." "No," he said, "it is not." Ava wiped her hands on a rag. "What was her name?" Roman looked towards the windows. In the garden below, Daisy ran in a circle while Nora watched from a bench. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through clouds in pieces. "Celeste," he said. The name changed the room. Ava heard it in his voice. Not just a name. A place he did not visit often. "Did she teach you to paint?" "She tried." "You were bad." "I was impatient." "That is shocking." He glanced at her. Ava held his gaze, daring him to smile. He almost did. Then his eyes dropped to the paint on her cheek. "You have blue on your face." Ava raised the rag. "Where?" Roman stepped closer. She should have stepped back. She did not. He lifted his hand slowly, giving her every chance to refuse. Ava watched his fingers come toward her jaw. Her pulse rose in her throat. He touched the edge of her cheek with his thumb and wiped the paint away in one slow stroke. It was nothing. It was worse than nothing. His hand lowered, but he stayed close. Ava's voice came out quieter than she wanted. "Do not make a habit of touching me." Roman looked at her mouth, then back to her eyes. "Then do not make a habit of standing still when I do." The words should have angered her. They did. They also moved through her like heat. Ava stepped back. "You are impossible. I have been called worse. By women. By everyone." That time she did smile small and unwilling. Roman saw it. The look that crossed his face was not triumph. It was surprise, as if he had wanted to make her smile, and had not expected the wanting to matter. Ava turned away first. "Show me the rest." "The rest of what?" "Your mother's paintings." The warmth vanished from his eyes. "Number." Ava nodded once. "Fine." She picked up the brush and returned to the canvas. Roman stayed where he was. She felt him watching. After a moment, he said, "You do not let things go." "Number." "Why?" "Because men keep taking them." Silence. That one landed between them harder than she expected. Roman left without another word. By late afternoon, the first layer of blue had begun to breathe. Ava worked standing, then sitting, then barefoot on the floor, with the canvas tilted low because the angle of her wrist mattered. The photograph remained nearby, but she stopped looking at it. Her memory supplied what the print could not. The way the child's hand pulled. The way the woman's coat flared like a wing that had not learned how to fly. The way the shadows made the ground look like a sentence. Daisy came back from the garden with grass stains on her knees and a flower in her hair. "Mr. Roman has a fountain," she announced. Ava looked up quickly. "You saw Roman. He was outside. I shot him with water." Nora entered behind her, already smiling. "With permission," she said. Ava stood. Outside, beyond the glass, Roman stood near the fountain with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled up. One shoulder of his white shirt was wet. Daisy had apparently not exaggerated. Roman looked up and saw Ava at the window. For a second, neither moved. Daisy tugged on Ava's hand. "He said I had good aim." Ava looked down. "Did he?" "Yes." "Can we keep him?" Ava choked on air. Nora made a small sound and turned toward the supply table. Ava crouched in front of Daisy. "Mr. Roman is not a stray cat." Daisy thought about that. "He is big like a dog." Ava pressed her lips together. "Go wash your hands." Daisy ran off toward the bathroom. Ava stood slowly and found Roman still looking through the window. His face gave nothing away. That evening, Vivian joined them in the kitchen while Nora served chicken potatoes and green beans. Ava sat beside Daisy at one end of the long table. Roman came in halfway through the meal and took a seat across from them without asking if he was welcome. Daisy was delighted. Ava was not. Vivian watched all of it with the sharp patience of a woman sorting evidence. Daisy held up a green bean. "Miss Vivian, do queens eat these?" Vivian took a sip of wine. "Only when threatened." Daisy looked at Ava. "Am I threatened?" "You are encouraged," Ava said. Roman cut into his chicken. "Same thing in this house." Vivian looked at him. "Not as often as you think." The words carried something beneath them. Roman's fork paused. Ava noticed, so did Vivian. Daisy did not. She was busy negotiating the exact number of green beans required for dessert. After dinner, Nora took Daisy upstairs for a bath. Ava stayed behind to help clear plates because sitting still made her feel like furniture. Vivian remained at the table. "You do not have to earn your food here," she said. Ava stacked another plate. "I know. Do you?" Ava looked at her. Vivian's gaze was not unkind, but it was not soft either. "Roman brought you here for a reason," Vivian said. "Reasons in this family usually have teeth. I noticed. And still you push him." "He pushed first." Vivian leaned back. "That is true." Ava waited. Vivian looked toward the dark window over the sink. "My grandson was not born gentle, but he was not born cruel either. This house taught him the difference badly." Ava dried her hands on a towel. "That sounds like an excuse." "It is not. It is a warning." Before Ava could answer, Roman appeared in the doorway. "Vivian." His voice carried no anger, but the room tightened. Vivian rose with slow elegance. "Some truths do not vanish because you dislike the timing." She walked past him. Roman watched her go. Ava watched him watching her. "What truths?" Ava asked. Roman turned back. "You ask too many questions. You keep too many secrets. That is not a crime. In your world, probably not." Roman crossed the kitchen until only the island stood between them. "My world kept you alive last night." Ava's hands curled against the counter. "Your world is the reason men like Grant thought they could sell me." His eyes darkened. "Grant Sloane is alive because I have not decided otherwise." Ava believed him. That was the problem with Roman. His threats did not sound like threats. They sounded like weather reports. She should have been afraid. She was. But fear was no longer the only thing in the room. Roman's gaze dropped briefly to her hands. You painted from memory today. Ava stilled. Number? Yes. I studied the photograph. You stopped looking at it after 2 hours. Ava swallowed. Painters remember patterns. Not like that. She stepped away from the counter. I am tired. Roman moved aside, allowing her a path to the door. Ava passed him. His voice followed her low enough that she could have pretended not to hear. You know that painting. Ava stopped in the hallway. For 1 second she almost answered. Then Daisy's laughter floated down from upstairs, bright and wet, from bath time, and Ava remembered who she had to protect. She kept walking. That night Ava could not sleep. Daisy had taken over the center of the bed, one arm flung across Ava's stomach, her rabbit hanging dangerously close to the edge. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Ava stared at the ceiling until the darkness began to feel painted. The blue would not leave her alone. At 3 a.m, she slipped out of bed, tucked a pillow beside Daisy, and crossed the hall barefoot. The house seemed different at night. Less like wealth, more like memory. The studio door was open. Ava entered without turning on the light. Moonlight and marsh glow gave her enough to see the canvas. She stood before it, arms crossed, studying the first layer. You need less fear in the next glaze. Ava spun. Roman sat on the floor near the far wall, one knee bent, a glass untouched beside him. He wore dark lounge pants and a thin cotton shirt, his hair loose, his face half in shadow. Her heart slammed. What are you doing in here? What are you doing in here? This is where the painting is, and yet you look surprised to find me near it. Ava pressed a hand to her chest. You sit in dark rooms like a criminal. I am a criminal. At least you have self-awareness. He rose in one smooth movement. Ava made herself stand still as he approached the canvas, not her. The blue is closer, he said. I know, but not right. I know that too. Roman looked at her. Come with me. Number. He paused. That word again. It lived differently between them now. Less like a wall. More like a match struck in a dark room. Roman's mouth curved faintly. You do not know where I am taking you. I know who is asking. His expression shifted. Not anger, something more interested. I'm showing you the rest. Ava's pulse changed. Your mother's paintings. Roman turned toward the door. You wanted answers. Ava followed him through the sleeping house. They descended a back staircase she had not noticed before. The air grew cooler. Stone replaced polished wood beneath her feet. At the end of a narrow corridor stood a steel door with a keypad. Roman entered the code without hiding it. Ava noticed. Careless. Number. Trusting. Number. The lock clicked. Roman opened the door. Climate-controlled air breathed out. Ava stepped inside and forgot him. 5 paintings hung on the walls. The rest of Marion Wren. Not reproductions. Not studies. Not photographs and books. The real works. Ava moved to the center of the room, turning slowly. Up close, the paintings were stranger than she expected. More human, less perfect. She could see where the artist had scraped away entire sections and rebuilt them, where a line had changed direction, where grief had been painted over, then returned to. She was better than the books said, Ava whispered. Roman stood by the door. Yes. Ava looked at one painting in particular, a dark interior with a window open to impossible light. No figure, yet the sill bore 2 handprints faint beneath the paint. Celeste, Ava said. Roman did not answer. The door behind them opened. Vivian stood there in a long robe, face pale beneath her red lipstick. Her eyes went to the paintings first, then Roman. You finally brought her down here. Roman's jaw tightened. Not now. Vivian ignored him. She looked at Ava. Marion Wren was my daughter. Ava turned fully. Vivian entered the room slower now, as if every step cost her. Her name was Celeste Callahan. Marion Wren was the name she used when she wanted to exist without this family swallowing her whole. Ava's eyes moved to Roman. His face was carved from stone. Vivian continued. She painted 9 works under that name. The 10th was never meant for sale. The woman running Ava said softly. Vivian looked at her sharply. Yes. Ava's throat tightened. What was it called? Vivian's voice lowered. The Door That Never Opened. The title moved through Ava like a hand closing around her ribs. Roman spoke then. Enough. Vivian looked at him with open grief. You think hiding her makes you loyal? Roman's voice went cold. I said enough. Ava looked between them. How did she die? No one answered. The silence did. Vivian looked away first. Officially, it was a car accident, and unofficially, Ava asked. Roman stepped toward her. Do not. Vivian's eyes shone. Unofficially powerful men often call things accidents, when the woman involved can no longer disagree. Ava felt the temperature of the room drop. Roman did not move. His face gave nothing away, but his hand had curled into a fist at his side. Ava understood then. Not everything enough. Roman had not collected Marion Wren. He had gathered the pieces of his mother that the world had scattered, and Warren Blackwell had the one piece he could not reach. Vivian turned to leave but paused beside Ava. If you paint that 10th work, do not paint it for Roman's revenge. Do not paint it for Blackwell's pride. Her voice softened. Paint it because Celeste deserved a door. Then she was gone. Ava stood in the vault with Roman and 5 dead women's silences on the walls. Roman reached for the keypad. Ava said Blackwell loved her. Roman stopped. The look he gave her was sharp enough to hurt. What did you say? Ava forced herself to breathe. I said Blackwell wanted the painting. No. Roman turned fully. That is not what you said. Ava stepped back. He noticed. His face changed. You know him. Ava's mouth went dry. Roman came closer slow enough not to be a threat and direct enough to be one anyway. Ava. She hated the way her name sounded in his voice down there surrounded by Celeste's paintings. Leave it alone. Who is Warren Blackwell to you? Ava lifted her chin. Number. Roman stopped in front of her. The room seemed to hold its breath. His eyes dropped to her mouth for one dangerous second, then returned to her eyes. When he spoke, his voice was low. You are the only person in this house who says that to me like you expect to survive it. Ava's back touched the wall. Maybe I am tired of surviving quietly. He lifted his hand. This time he did not touch her. His fingers hovered near her chin close enough that she felt the warmth. Close enough that memory folded back on itself. The studio. The hook of his voice. The first time he had made no sound feel louder than thunder. I have not decided, he murmured, if I like that yet. Ava's breath caught and she hated herself for it. Roman saw. Of course he saw. For 3 seconds neither moved. Then he stepped back. The air returned too quickly. Ava slipped past him and left the vault without looking back. She did not stop walking until she reached the guest room. Daisy slept on her stomach, 1 foot outside the blanket, peaceful in the lamplight. Ava sat on the edge of the bed and opened the hidden folder on her phone. 1 photograph. She had kept it for reasons she never admitted. A girl of 17 in a white dress stood beside Warren Blackwell at a museum gala. Warren smiled for the camera with one hand resting possessively on the girl's shoulder. The caption beneath read, Warren Blackwell with his daughter Ava Blackwell. Ava stared at it until the words blurred. Then she locked the screen and placed the phone face down. By morning, a black dress hung on the outside of her wardrobe door. Beneath it sat a pair of heels she had no intention of wearing. A card rested on the bed in Roman's handwriting. Dinner tonight, be ready at 7. Ava stood in front of the wardrobe and stared at the black dress like it had been laid there as a dare. Dinner tonight, be ready at 7. Roman's handwriting was clean-controlled and irritatingly calm. Even his letters looked like they expected to be obeyed. The dress was beautiful. That made her dislike it more. Soft black silk, simple neckline long enough to look elegant, fitted enough to make refusal feel personal. The heels beneath it were narrow and expensive and completely useless to a woman who might need to run. Ava picked up the shoes, studied them for 3 seconds, then put them back exactly where they had been. No, she said to the empty room. Daisy looked up from the rug where she had arranged her stuffed rabbit, 3 crayons, and a wooden spoon into what appeared to be a courtroom. "Are you talking to the dress?" "Yes." "Is it being bad?" "Very." Daisy nodded with deep understanding. "Put it in timeout." Ava almost smiled. She crossed to the bed and picked up Roman's card again. The paper was thick and cream-colored. Of course it was. Men like Roman did not leave messages on the back of grocery receipts. Men like Roman gave orders on stationery. She turned the card over. Nothing else. No explanation, no request, no pleas. Ava set it down. The door opened behind her after one soft knock, and Nora stepped in carrying a small tray with tea, honey, and sliced peaches. "I brought something light," Nora said. "You did not come down for lunch." "I was not hungry." That is what people say when hunger is not the problem. Ava looked at her. Nora placed the tray on the table by the window and glanced at the dress. "He does not usually send clothes. That is supposed to make me feel special." "No," Nora said. "It is supposed to make you cautious." Ava sat on the edge of the bed. "Where is he taking me?" Nora hesitated. The hesitation answered first. Ava's eyes sharpened. "Nora." "To the Mercer Club." Ava went still. The name carried the cold taste of old Savannah. Private dining rooms. Oil portraits. Men who inherited power and called it character. Women who smiled with their mouths closed because rage might wrinkle the face. Ava had been there once, as a teenager on her father's arm wearing a white dress her mother had chosen and a pearl bracelet Warren Blackwell said made her look respectable. That night, a man twice her age had told Warren she had grown into a fine young woman. Warren had smiled. Ava had wanted to disappear. Nora watched her carefully. "You know the place." Ava picked up one of Daisy's crayons and rolled it between her fingers. "I know the kind of people who eat there. Mr. Callahan has business there tonight, with Warren Blackwell." Nora's face did not change. That was answer enough. Ava looked towards the window. Beyond the glass, the marsh lay green and gold beneath late afternoon light. The world outside looked peaceful in a way that felt insulting. "Does Roman know?" Ava asked. "Know what?" "That Warren is my father." Nora did not answer too quickly. Ava respected her for that. "I do not know what Mr. Callahan knows," Nora said. "But he has a way of finding what people bury." Ava laughed softly without humor. "So does my father." Daisy crawled onto the bed beside Ava. "Mommy, who is your father?" Ava looked down at her daughter. For a second, the room dissolved. Not because Daisy had asked a hard question, but because she had asked it simply. As if fathers were normal things. As if they belonged in stories without ruining them. Ava brushed a curl from Daisy's forehead. "A man we do not visit. Is he mean?" Ava looked at the dress again. "Yes, baby, he is." Daisy leaned against her side. "Then do not go." Ava wrapped an arm around her. That would have been the clean answer. "Do not go. Stay in the room. Refuse Roman. Refuse Blackwell. Refuse the dress, the dinner, the whole rotten theater of men calling greed by softer names." But Warren Blackwell was not a man who disappeared when ignored. He waited. He arranged. He punished from behind polished doors. If Roman was walking into Warren's world tonight, Ava needed to see which blade was aimed where. At 6:40, Ava put on the dress. At 6:50, she put on her own white sneakers. At 6:58, Daisy stood in the doorway with both hands on her cheeks. "Mommy," she whispered, "you look like a movie." Ava crouched and kissed her nose. "A tired movie. A pretty tired movie." "Thank you." Daisy touched the skirt with one finger. "Are you coming back?" The question entered Ava cleanly and hurt on the way in. She took Daisy's hands. Always. Roman was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Ava saw him before he saw her. He stood near the hall mirror adjusting one cufflink. Black suit, white shirt, no tie. His hair brushed back his jaw, freshly shaved, his face composed in that infuriating way that made violence look civilized. Then he looked up, his hand stilled. Ava descended slowly, one hand on the banister, refusing to hurry because he was watching. His gaze moved over the dress, her bare throat, her loose hair, then down to the sneakers. Something changed in his mouth. Not a smirk. Something quieter. You wore sneakers. You left me weapons disguised as shoes. The heels. If I wore those, the only person in danger would be me. Roman stepped closer as she reached the bottom stair. The sneakers work. Ava looked up at him. Try not to sound surprised. I am not surprised. His eyes held hers. That is the problem. Daisy came running from the hall and wrapped both arms around Ava's legs. Mr. Roman, Mommy, looks like a movie. Roman looked down at her. She does. Daisy turned serious. You look like the villain. Ava made a small sound that almost became a laugh. Roman considered Daisy with equal seriousness. That is fair. Daisy nodded, satisfied. Then she reached her arms toward him. Ava went still. Roman did too. Daisy waited. Up, she said. Roman looked at Ava. For once he asked without asking. Ava hated how much that mattered. She nodded once. Roman bent and lifted Daisy carefully. She settled in his arms as if she had known him longer than 2 days. Her small hand patted his shoulder. You are not scary when you hold me. Roman's expression flickered. Ava saw it. So did Vivian, who appeared in the sitting room doorway with a glass in her hand and a look sharp enough to cut silk. Roman's voice was low. I will keep that in mind. Daisy touched his cheek. Do you have to go to dinner? Yes. Bring Mommy back. Ava's throat tightened. Roman looked at Daisy for a moment longer than necessary. I will. Ava did not want to believe him. She did anyway a little. Roman handed Daisy to Nora, who had appeared beside them. Daisy clung to Ava's hand until the last second. Vivian walked closer, her eyes moving from Ava's dress to her sneakers to Roman's face. I thought this was business. Roman held out his hand to Ava. It is. Ava looked at his hand, then at him. I can walk. I know. He did not lower his hand. Ava could have refused. She almost did. But Daisy was watching. Vivian was watching. Nora was watching. And somewhere beyond the gates, Warren Blackwell was waiting in a room full of people who would smell weakness before the first course. Ava placed her hand in Roman's. His fingers closed around hers. Warm. Firm, not crushing. Still a claim. She leaned closer as they walked toward the front door. I never agreed to be used as decoration. Roman opened the door. Good. Ava looked at him. I do not collect decorations. Outside, the evening air smelled like salt and cut grass. The SUV waited at the foot of the steps. Roman kept her hand until they reached it, then released her only to open the door himself. Ava slid inside. The city took shape around them as they drove. Blackwater House disappeared behind iron gates and trees. The road curved toward Savannah, where sunset burned copper across the river, and the old buildings glowed like they were hiding sins in their brick. Roman sat beside her this time, not across. Ava watched his reflection in the window. Why am I going? He did not look at her. Because Warren Blackwell will be there. Her pulse tightened. You could have said that. You would have refused. I am still considering it. No, you are not. Ava turned. Roman's face remained forward, eyes on the road beyond the windshield. You want to see him, he said. Ava's voice went cold. You know nothing about what I want. I know you went pale when you heard his name. I know you knew the 10th painting. I know you changed your last name before you were 22. I know there are no records of Daisy's father, and I know Warren Blackwell has spent 5 years pretending he never had a daughter. Every word struck with surgical precision. Ava stared at him. You had me investigated. Yes? Her hand curled against the seat. While I was painting for you, before. The honesty made it worse. She looked out the window before he could see too much. Then you know he is my father. Yes. The word settled in the car like smoke. Ava waited for the question, the accusation, the satisfaction of being right. Roman gave her none of it. After a while, he said, Why did you run? Ava laughed under her breath. From Warren, pick a reason. I am asking for the one that made you leave. Ava looked at the city lights. There were stories people told because they wanted to be understood. Then there were stories that had teeth, stories you kept locked up because speaking them gave them shape again. My father had plans for me, she said. Roman listened. He called them opportunities. Education. Marriage. Family legacy. He liked words that sounded clean. Her fingers moved over the fabric of the dress. When I got pregnant, he said I had embarrassed him. He paid Daisy's father to disappear and told everyone I was ill. Then he arranged for me to marry a man named Elliot Mercer before the baby showed. Roman's jaw hardened. Ava kept her eyes on the window. Elliot was 37. I was 22. My father said it was generous of him to accept the situation. Roman's voice was quiet. And Daisy's father, scared, young, weak, bought easily. She swallowed. I do not hate him anymore. That would require carrying him. Roman did not speak. Ava looked at him then. Do not look noble. You dragged me from my home using my daughter as leverage. His eyes shifted to her. I know. That stopped her. No defense, no excuse, no smooth Callahan answer. Just 2 words. Ava looked away first. The Mercer Club stood on a corner near the river behind gas lamps and black awnings. Inside, the air was cold with old wealth. Dark wood paneling, green leather chairs, oil paintings of men who had never questioned whether the world belonged to them. Conversation dipped when Roman entered. It did not stop. That would have been too obvious. But it dipped like every voice had lowered itself around his name. Ava felt the room take her in. The dress, the sneakers, the lack of pearls. Roman's hand at the small of her back not pressing, just present. People smiled. Their eyes measured. A silver-haired man in a navy suit approached first. Callahan, Senator Vale. The senator's gaze moved to Ava. And this must be. Roman said Ava Whitaker, my art consultant. Ava almost laughed. The senator took her hand. Art consultant, how refined. Ava smiled sweetly. Only when paid. Roman's hand stilled at her back. The senator blinked, then laughed because Roman did not. They moved through the room that way. Roman introducing her with calm possession, Ava answering each polished insult with just enough sweetness to make men wonder if they had been cut. Then the room changed. Ava felt it before she saw him. Some fears do not announce themselves. They enter the body like weather. Warren Blackwell stood near the far fireplace with a drink in one hand and a smile that belonged on a campaign poster. He was tall, silver-haired, handsome in the preserved way of men who paid others to age around them. His suit was perfect. His shoes shone. His eyes were the exact shade of Ava's, which she had always considered one of nature's cruelties. He saw her. His smile did not move, but his eyes did. Ava felt 12 years old again. Then 17. Then 22 and pregnant, standing in his study while he explained how her life would be corrected. Roman's hand moved slightly against her back. Not claiming now. Anchoring. Warren crossed the room. Roman Callahan, he said warmly. You do know how to make an entrance. Roman's smile was minimal. I learned from watching men who needed them. Warren's eyes turned to Ava. For a moment, he simply looked at her. Like a collector, finding a missing piece damaged but recoverable. Ava. Roman let the silence stretch before speaking. You know Miss Whitaker. Warren's gaze did not leave Ava. I knew her under another name. Ava lifted her chin. That name is dead. Warren's smile softened for the room. Dramatic as ever. Roman's voice went very still. What name? Ava answered before Warren could. Blackwell. The word landed. A small flicker went through the people nearest them. Not shock exactly. Recognition. Calculation. The story rearranging itself in their heads. Warren stepped closer. You look like your mother. Ava's face did not change. Do not say that like it belongs to you. The warmth fell from Warren's eyes. Roman noticed. So did everyone close enough to pretend they were not listening. Warren recovered first. We should speak privately. No, Ava said. Warren's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Roman looked at Ava. There it was again. That word, no. But this time it was not aimed at him. Warren looked at Roman. I assume you did not bring her here by accident. Roman's smile was cold. I rarely do anything by accident. Then, perhaps you should know my daughter has a long habit of confusing escape with intelligence. Ava stepped forward before Roman could respond. And my father has a long habit of confusing ownership with love. Warren's fingers tightened around his glass. For 1 second, the mask slipped. Ava saw the man from the study. The man behind closed doors. The man who never raised his voice until he knew no one important could hear. Then the dinner bell rang. The private dining room seated 20 beneath a chandelier that looked like frozen rain. Ava sat beside Roman because that was where Roman placed her and because Warren had arranged himself directly across from them. Of course he had. Dinner moved through courses Ava barely tasted. Men discussed port permits, zoning committees, private security contracts, museum donations, and the upcoming Blackwell Coastal Foundation Gala. Women in diamonds laughed at the right moments. Wine appeared and disappeared. Knives touched porcelain softly. Ava listened. Roman said little. That made others talk more. Warren mentioned the gala 3 times. Roman heard all 3. Finally, Roman set down his glass. You still keep the private gallery open during the fundraiser. Warren smiled. For select guests. Generous. Culture should be shared. Ava nearly choked. Warren's eyes flicked to her. You disagree, Ava. She placed her fork down. I think some men only share what they want admired. A silence opened. Roman looked at his plate, but Ava saw the corner of his mouth move. Warren's smile thinned. You always did mistake bitterness for insight, and you always mistook silence for agreement. One of the women at the table took a long drink of wine. Roman finally looked at Warren. I would like to see the gallery. Warren leaned back. I am sure you would. The air between them tightened. Ava looked from one man to the other and understood with sick clarity. This dinner was not dinner. It was reconnaissance. Roman was not only confirming the painting existed, he was confirming access, and he had brought Ava because Warren would react to her, because she knew the house, because her presence could open doors or distract from the ones Roman intended to breach. Ava sat very still. Roman felt the change in her. His gaze shifted briefly, but she did not look at him. By the time the evening ended, Ava's anger had gone quiet. Quiet anger was the kind that lasted. Outside, the night smelled of river water and exhaust. Roman guided her toward the SUV, but Ava stopped under the awning. Do not touch me. Roman lowered his hand at once. Good. That made her angrier. Inside the car, she waited until the doors closed. You knew he would be there. Yes. You knew he would recognize me. Yes. You used me. Roman looked at her. I needed to see how he reacted. Ava laughed once. And did you get what you needed? His voice was low. Yes. Her palm struck his face before she fully decided to move. The sound cracked through the car. The driver went very still. Roman did not move. Ava's hand burned. His cheek reddened slowly. He looked at her with no anger. None. That was almost unbearable. I deserved that, he said. Ava's voice shook. You deserve worse. Yes? She looked away because if he kept agreeing with her, she might lose the shape of her rage. For several minutes, the car moved through Savannah in silence. Then Roman spoke. I did not know he would speak to you like that. Ava stared out the window. Yes, you did. Men like you always know what other men are capable of. You just hope the damage is useful. Roman did not answer. She turned back. Tell me the truth for once. Not part of it. Not the version that lets you sleep. Roman's eyes held hers. The painting is in Blackwell House, his private gallery. During the Coastal Foundation Gala, the room opens for donors. Miles can get my people inside through service access, but we need the frame removed without raising alarm. You know the gallery, you know the staff patterns, you know the house. Ava's throat went tight. So that is why I'm here. You are here because you can paint the duplicate. No, that is why you paid me. I am here because I am his daughter. Roman's silence answered. Ava nodded slowly. You saw me at the auction and thought you had found a key. I saw you at the auction and thought you were in danger and useful. His jaw tightened. Yes, there it was. The honest wound. Ava looked down at her hands. They had painted for survival. Painted for rent. Painted because men kept turning beauty into money and calling the transaction art. Now, Roman wanted those same hands to help him steal from her father. Warren had owned her childhood. Roman had tried to own her present. Both of them wanted the painting. Neither of them had asked what Ava wanted. When they returned to Blackwater House, Daisy was asleep in the guest room, curled around her rabbit. Ava stood in the doorway for a long time, letting the sight of her daughter rebuild what the evening had taken. Roman waited in the hall. Ava did not invite him in. "I will finish the painting," she said quietly. Roman's face changed. "You are sure?" She looked at him. "No, but I am doing it anyway." "Ava, do not make this soft." Her voice stayed low because Daisy was sleeping. "You want your revenge. My father wants his trophy. Grant wanted money. Every man in this story wants something made from a woman's pain." Roman flinched. Barely, but she saw it. Ava stepped closer to him. "I am going to paint your duplicate. You are going to pay me. And when this is done, Daisy and I leave. Not when you decide the job is finished. When I do." Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "All right." Ava did not trust the answer, but she accepted the shape of it. The next morning, Ava began the second layer. The blue obeyed now. Lead white beneath the glaze gave it depth, but memory gave it life. She stopped painting from the photograph entirely. She painted the way she remembered standing before the original as a child, small hands folded in front of her listening to her mother cry behind a closed bedroom door. The woman in the painting was no longer only Celeste Callahan. She was every woman who had learned the floor plan of her cage. Daisy painted beside her. Sometimes Roman came in and said nothing. Sometimes he brought coffee. Once he set a plate of toast near Ava's elbow and left before she could refuse it. She refused it anyway, then ate it cold 20 minutes later. On the third day, Vivian came to the studio. Ava was alone. Daisy was napping upstairs with Nora. Vivian stood before the canvas for a long time. "You are not copying it," she said. Ava cleaned her brush. "I am." "No, you are remembering it." Ava looked at her. Vivian's eyes were wet, though her voice remained steady. "Roman told you Celeste was his mother." "Yes." "Did he tell you Warren Blackwell loved her?" Ava's hand stilled. "Number." Vivian looked at the half-formed woman on the canvas. "Love is a generous word for what men like Blackwell do." He wanted her. She refused him. Later, after she married Roman's father, Warren bought one of her paintings under another name. Then another. Then he discovered Marion Wren was Celeste. Ava could barely breathe. What happened? Vivian's mouth tightened. He threatened exposure. He threatened scandal. He threatened her child. Celeste painted the door that never opened after that. Why does Warren have it? Because after she died, things disappeared. Vivian looked at Ava. Letters, sketches, paintings, proof. Ava understood the word beneath the word. Proof of what Warren had done. Vivian stepped closer and placed something on the work table. An old brass key. Ava stared at it. "What is that?" Celeste built hiding places into her frames. She did not trust walls. She trusted craftsmanship. Ava picked up the key. It was small-old and heavier than it looked. Vivian said if Warren kept the original frame, there may be something inside it. Ava looked up. "Why give this to me?" Vivian's expression softened for the first time. "Because Roman will use the painting to hurt Blackwell. You might use it to free someone." Ava closed her fingers around the key. That night, she started painting the first duplicate. Then she began another. The second canvas was hidden behind a stack of blank frames in the storage room off the studio. She worked on it after midnight when Daisy slept and Roman was either away or pretending not to watch her door. The first duplicate was for Roman. It was precise, beautiful, convincing. The second was for Warren. It was colder, cleaner, more like what a man like him believed he owned. The real painting, if Ava could reach it, would belong to neither of them. On the morning of the Blackwell Coastal Foundation Gala, Roman found her in the studio. The finished duplicate stood on the easel. He stopped in the doorway. For once, Ava saw the breath leave him. The painting looked alive. The woman running. The child pulled close. The shadows like bars. The door beyond the darkness implied but unseen. Roman came closer slowly. Ava watched his face, not the painting. There was no triumph there. Only grief, sharpened by longing. "You did it," he said. Ava wiped her hands on a cloth. "I did what you paid for." He looked at her. "That is not all you did." "No," she said, "it is not." His eyes searched hers. She gave him nothing else. By dusk, Blackwater House moved with quiet preparation. Men Ava had seen only in glimpses appeared in dark suits. Miles Kane checked his phone near the front entrance, calm as a priest before confession. Nora packed Daisy's overnight bag even though Ava had not asked her to. Ava found Daisy in the bedroom wearing yellow pajamas and brushing her rabbit's ears with one of Ava's clean paintbrushes. "I have to go out tonight," Ava said softly. Daisy looked up. "With Mr. Roman?" "Yes, to see the mean father." Ava sat beside her. "Yes." Daisy's face grew serious. "Do you have to?" Ava took the brush gently from her hand. "I think I do." Daisy leaned into her. "Come back." Ava closed her eyes. "I will always come back to you." When Ava went downstairs, Roman was waiting. This time he had not chosen a dress for her. Ava wore black trousers, a dark blouse, and her white sneakers. Her hair was tied back. The brass key was sewn into the lining of her sleeve. Roman looked at her carefully. "You ready?" "Number." He nodded. "Neither am I." That surprised her. He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Ava." She turned. His voice lowered. "If something goes wrong, you take Daisy and the money, and you run. Miles has instructions." Ava studied him. "You expect me to thank you for building an escape hatch after locking the door." "Number." "Good." She walked past him into the night. Blackwell House stood north of Savannah behind gates twice as tall as Ava remembered. White stone, tall windows, perfect hedges, lanterns glowing along the drive. The mansion looked less like a home than a verdict. Cars lined the entrance. Guests stepped out in gowns and tailored suits carrying donations and secrets. Ava's stomach tightened as Roman helped her from the SUV. She smelled gardenias. For one painful second, she was a girl again, standing beside her mother at the top of the stairs while Warren told them both to smile. Roman's hand hovered near her back. He did not touch her. Ava noticed. Warren greeted them in the grand hall beneath a crystal chandelier. His smile widened when he saw Ava. "My daughter returns." Ava smiled back. "No, your guest arrived." Warren's eyes cooled. Roman stepped beside her. "Blackwell." "Callahan." The men shook hands like the gesture did not discuss them both. Music drifted from the ballroom. Servers moved with trays of champagne. Donors praised the foundation. Warren accepted admiration with practiced humility. Ava moved through the house beside Roman, every hallway striking some buried nerve. The library where Warren once locked the phone away. The staircase where her mother had stood with a broken pearl necklace in her hand. The closed study door. Always the study door. Roman noticed too much. When they reached the entrance to the private gallery, Warren appeared at Ava's side. "Come," he said. "You should see what you ran from." Ava looked at Roman. His face was unreadable. Ava followed Warren into the gallery. The room was colder than the rest of the house. Climate control, white walls, museum lighting, a private chapel for stolen things. And there it was, the door that never opened. The real painting hung at the far end of the room in its original frame. Ava stopped. The photograph had been a shadow. Her memory had been a wound. The real painting was both and more. The blue did not sit on the surface. It seemed to breathe from beneath. The woman's body leaned forward with terrible purpose. The child's hand pulled back not from fear, but from trust. The bars of light did not imprison them. They marked the final steps before escape. Ava felt tears rise and force them down. Warren stood beside her. Your mother hated this room. Ava did not look at him. She hated you. Warren's smile remained. She was fragile. Ava turned then. No, she was trapped. Something flashed in his eyes. He stepped closer, voice low enough for only her. You think Callahan cares about you, he wants that painting. That is all men like him understand. Ava looked back at the canvas, and you kept it because you understood love. Warren's hand closed around her arm, not hard enough to bruise in public, hard enough to remind, you are still my daughter. Ava looked down at his fingers. No, she said, I am the woman who left. Across the room, a glass shattered. The distraction was small, perfect. Miles moved near the doorway. Roman spoke to a donor blocking the view of one corner. Two servers shifted a portable screen into place under the excuse of preparing a champagne station. Ava stepped away from Warren. He let her go because people were watching. She moved toward the painting. Her heart beat once, twice, 3 times. She reached beneath her sleeve and found the key. Her fingers slid along the underside of the frame, searching. There, a small brass plate hidden beneath carved wood. The key entered, turned, a soft click. Ava's breath stopped. The backing loosened. Behind her, Warren's voice said, "What are you doing?" She froze. The room sharpened. Music from the ballroom. Ice in glasses. Roman's voice somewhere behind her. Warren's footsteps approaching. Ava removed the small packet from inside the frame and slipped it into the lining of her jacket. Then she turned. Warren stood close enough to see the open backing. For the first time that night he looked afraid. Not of losing the painting, of losing what was inside it. His face twisted. You stupid girl. Ava lifted her chin, like mother, like daughter. His hand struck her across the face. Pain burst white behind her eyes. She hit the floor on one knee. The room went silent. Then Roman's voice cut through it low and deadly. Touch her again, Blackwell. Ava looked up. Roman stood at the gallery entrance, eyes fixed on Warren. Every mask was gone from his face. Give me a reason, Roman said, to end this family line tonight. No one in the gallery moved. Not the donors gathered in the doorway with champagne still in their hands. Not the security men at the far wall who had already noticed Miles Kane standing too close to the exit with one hand inside his jacket. Not Warren Blackwell, whose face had gone pale beneath its polished mask. Ava remained on one knee, one hand pressed to the floor, the other curled against her jacket, where the packet from the frame rested against her ribs. Her cheek burned where Warren had struck her. The pain was sharp, familiar, almost insulting in how quickly her body remembered it. Roman's eyes did not leave Warren. He looked different like this. Not controlled, not charming, not the quiet king of rooms built on fear. His rage had stripped him down to something older, something more honest and more dangerous. Warren straightened slowly. "This is my house," he said. Roman stepped inside the gallery. "Then you should have behaved better in it." Warren looked toward his security. Miles moved first, not dramatically. He simply shifted his jacket aside enough for Warren's men to understand the room had changed hands before they had noticed. 2 of Roman's men appeared behind the guests. Another stood near the private corridor that led toward the service wing. The donors began to understand they were not at a fundraiser anymore. Warren's smile returned, but it came back wrong. "You bring armed men into a charity event, Callahan." Roman stopped beside Ava. "You bring your hand down on a woman in public and still expect manners." Ava rose before he could reach for her. She did not want to be lifted. Not here, not in this room, not in front of her father. Roman saw the decision and let his hand fall. That small act steadied her more than touch would have. Warren's eyes moved from Roman to Ava. "You see," he said softly, "this is what he is. Violence in a better suit." Ava tasted blood at the corner of her mouth. You should not criticize another man's suit while wearing the same skin. Something in Warren's face broke. Roman glanced at her then, only for a second. But that second held too much. Concern, pride, fury. Warren pointed toward the painting. You came for that. Do not pretend this is about her." The door that never opened hung behind him beneath perfect museum light. The woman and child ran forever across the canvas, trapped in motion, trapped in beauty, trapped in a room owned by the man who had never understood them. Roman looked at it. Ava watched him look. For years, that painting had been the shape of his grief, the piece he could not recover, the proof that Warren Blackwell had taken something from his mother and kept it like a trophy. Warren saw Roman looking and smiled. "There she is," he said. "Celeste's little ghost. That is what you want, isn't it? Not the woman. Not even the truth. You want the satisfaction of taking something from me." Roman's jaw flexed. Warren stepped closer, gaining confidence now that he had found the wound. "Your mother was never yours to avenge. She made her choices. She married a Callahan. She painted under a false name. She played with worlds she did not understand." Roman's hand curled. Ava spoke before he moved. "Roman." His eyes came to her. She did not say don't. She did not plead. She simply looked at him and let him see the truth. If he killed Warren here, the room would remember only blood. Not Celeste. Not Ava. Not Daisy. Not the painting. Just another violent man proving another cruel man right. Roman looked back at Warren. For one terrible moment, Ava thought he would do it anyway. Then Roman lowered his hand. Warren noticed and smiled wider. "That's right," Warren murmured. "You know what this room is worth. You know what happens if you pull that trigger in front of senators and donors and half the city's board members." Roman looked almost bored. "I was not thinking about them." "Then what stopped you?" Roman turned his head toward Ava. The room followed his gaze. Ava stood with one cheek red and her spine straight. Her eyes bright with pain she refused to spend on tears. Roman's voice was quiet. She did. Warren's smile faded. Roman looked at the painting again. "I spent years thinking that canvas mattered because you had it." Warren's eyes narrowed. Roman took one step closer to him. "I told myself taking it from you would settle something. That my mother would finally rest. That your name would finally mean loss instead of power." He looked at the woman in the painting, then at Ava. "But she is dead. Ava is not." Ava stopped breathing. Roman faced Warren fully. "Keep it." The words landed harder than a gunshot. Warren blinked. "What?" Roman's voice did not rise. "Keep the painting." Miles looked at Roman, then at Ava, then said nothing. Ava stared at Roman. He had come into this house for revenge. He had built plans, paid men, bought access, studied routes, forced Ava into his orbit, all for this one moment. Yet now he stood 2 feet from the thing he had wanted most, and left it hanging on Warren Blackwell's wall. Warren's face twisted with confusion, first, then suspicion. "You expect me to believe that?" Roman looked at him with cold contempt. "I do not care what you believe." He turned to Ava. "Are you hurt?" The question was so simple it nearly undid her. Ava swallowed. "Number." Roman's gaze dropped to her mouth where the small cut betrayed her. Her answer had not fooled him. He still did not touch her. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Then we leave." Warren stepped into their path. "This is not over." Roman looked at him. "You lost your daughter tonight." Warren's eyes snapped to Ava. "She is my blood." Ava met his stare. "No, I was your possession. There is a difference." The room held its breath around the words. Warren's face changed in a way Ava had seen only behind closed doors. Rage, yes. But beneath it, fear. Not fear of Roman, not even fear of losing the painting. Fear of being seen. Ava reached into her jacket and removed the package she had taken from the frame. The paper was old, wrapped in oilcloth, tied with a faded blue ribbon. Warren went still. Roman saw his reaction. Ava held the packet against her chest. "I think this is why you kept the original frame." Warren's voice dropped. "Give that to me." Ava almost smiled. There it was. The command beneath the gentleman. Number. Roman stepped beside her. This time, when his hand hovered near her back, Ava leaned into it by half an inch. Not because she needed protection. Because she chose the nearness. Roman noticed. His eyes shifted, but he did not speak. Warren's face hardened. You have no idea what you are holding. Ava looked toward the painted woman and child. I think I do. She walked past him. The guests parted. No one stopped her. No one dared. In the main hall, music had died. The string quartet sat frozen with bows resting above strings. A woman near the staircase whispered into her phone. One of Warren's board members looked at Roman and quickly looked away. Ava kept walking until the night air hit her face. Outside, the garden lamps glowed through thick coastal humidity. The black SUV waited beyond the fountain. Ava made it halfway down the steps before her knees weakened. Roman caught her elbow, lightly. A question in the touch. She let him. Do not ask if I am all right, she said. I was not going to. Yes, you were. Yes. She breathed out, almost a laugh, almost a sob. Miles came down the steps behind them. House is contained, he said to Roman. No police yet. Blackwell is too busy pretending nothing happened. Roman's voice stayed flat. Good. Miles looked at Ava. His expression gave away nothing, but his tone softened by a fraction. You need medical attention. Ava shook her head. Number. Roman opened the SUV door. Ava stopped before getting in. The painting, she said. Roman's face was unreadable. I told him to keep it. I heard. That surprises you. It should. Roman looked past her toward the glowing house. For a long time I thought taking it would hurt him enough. And now, his eyes returned to hers. Now I know leaving him with a fake life hurts more. Ava felt the packet beneath her hand. A fake life. She almost told him everything then. She almost said that the painting on Warren's wall was no longer real, that the swap had happened behind the portable screen while Warren's eyes were fixed on her, that Roman's men had taken the duplicate Roman expected them to take, but not the one he thought, that the true canvas had left the gallery before the slap rolled inside a conservation tube marked as event signage, carried by a server Nora had placed years ago in Blackwell's household staff. She almost told him she had painted 2 lies and stolen the truth. But Roman had just chosen her without reward. Ava needed to know what that choice meant when he believed he had gained nothing. So she said nothing. They rode back to Blackwater House in silence. Roman sat beside her close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The old oilcloth packet rested in Ava's lap. She did not open it. Roman did not ask to see it. Halfway home, he took a handkerchief from his pocket and held it out. Ava looked at it. Do all dangerous men carry handkerchiefs? Only the prepared ones. She took it and pressed it gently to her lip. The car passed through the iron gates of Blackwater House after midnight. Daisy was asleep when Ava entered the guest room. Nora sat in the chair beside the bed, a book open in her lap, though her eyes were on the door. When she saw Ava's face, she stood. Oh, honey. Ava shook her head quickly. I am fine. Nora did not insult her by agreeing. Daisy stirred. Mommy. Ava crossed to the bed and lay beside her without removing the dress. I'm here. Daisy touched Ava's cheek in the dark. Did the mean father be mean? Ava closed her eyes. Yes. Did you come back? Ava pulled Daisy close. Always. Daisy tucked herself under Ava's chin and fell asleep again within minutes. Ava stayed awake until dawn. When morning came, Roman was waiting in the studio. Not with demands. Not with the painting. Not with the contract. With a bank transfer receipt printed on white paper and placed on the work table. $5 million. Ava stared at it. You paid me. Yes. The job failed. Number. You did not get the painting. Roman stood near the windows, hands in his pockets, the marshlight behind him. I got you and Daisy out of that house. Ava looked at him. That was not the deal. Number. Then why? His answer came after a long silence. Because I made you a prisoner and called it protection. Because I used your past without asking what it cost you. Because Daisy should never have been leverage. Because you painted my mother's grief and somehow gave it breath. Ava's throat tightened. Roman turned from the window. The money is yours. The account is in your name only. Miles has documents for a new lease if you want one. A car. Security for as long as you need it, whether you stay in Savannah or not. Ava did not move. There it was, the open door. No lock, no threat, no beautiful cage dressed up as safety. Roman's face gave nothing away, but his eyes did. He was bracing for the one thing men like him could not command. Her choice. Ava folded the receipt slowly. And if I leave? His jaw shifted once. Then you leave. With Daisy. Yes, you will not follow. Number. You will not send men. Not unless you ask me to. Ava looked down because looking at him hurt. For days she had wanted this. Freedom. Money. A road out. A life where Daisy never again woke to strange men in the apartment or slept under the roof of a man who decided things for them. Now the door stood open and something inside Ava refused to celebrate. That angered her. She packed before lunch. Nora cried quietly while pretending not to. Vivian gave Daisy a small silver locket and told her queen should carry secrets close to the heart. Daisy asked if she could visit the garden again someday. Vivian's face tightened. You may visit whenever your mother allows it. Roman stood by the front steps when Ava came down with Daisy's bag over her shoulder. Daisy ran to him. Ava almost told her not to. She did not. Roman crouched as Daisy threw her arms around his neck. You are not coming, Daisy asked. Roman held her carefully. No little bird. Ava looked away at the name. Her name for Daisy. He had heard it. Kept it. Used it gently. Daisy leaned back and studied his face. Are you sad? Roman's mouth softened. A little. You can have my rabbit for one night. Ava's heart clenched. Roman looked at the worn stuffed rabbit Daisy held out to him. For a second he seemed unable to speak. Then he closed Daisy's hands back around it. You keep him safe for me. Daisy nodded gravely. Ava walked to the car Roman had arranged. Not an SUV with dark windows. A simple blue sedan used but clean with a child seat already installed. Roman opened the rear door for Daisy. After Daisy climbed in, Ava faced him. The morning air smelled of marsh water and jasmine. I do not forgive you, she said. Roman nodded. I know, but I believe you meant what you said. His eyes held hers. I did. Ava's fingers tightened around the keys. Do not make me regret that. I will try not to. No? Ava stepped closer. Do better than try. Roman breathed in slowly. I will. She waited for him to say something else. To ask her to stay. To turn choice into pressure with one soft sentence. He did not. So Ava got in the car and drove away. She rented a small cottage near Tybee Island with peeling blue shutters, a crooked porch, and a view of seagrass bending in the wind. It was not grand. It was not secure by Roman Callahan standards. But the doors opened when Ava wanted them to open, and the windows looked toward water that belonged to no man. Daisy loved it immediately. She chose the smaller bedroom because the morning sun made squares on the floor. She placed her rabbit on the pillow and declared the house friendly. For the first week, Ava slept badly. For the second, she slept too much. The money sat in her account like a myth. Bills were paid. Groceries filled the kitchen. Daisy got new shoes, new books, new paints, and a doctor's appointment. Ava did not have to reschedule twice out of shame. Ava tried to paint. Nothing came. Every canvas stayed blank. At night, she sat on the porch while Daisy slept and listened to the Atlantic breathe beyond the dunes. She opened the oilcloth packet from the frame. Inside were letters. Celeste's handwriting filled thin pages in blue-black ink. Not love letters, not exactly. Confessions, records, names, dates, payments routed through Warren's foundations, threats written in careful language. One small sketch of a woman and child before a closed door. There was also a photograph. Celeste Callahan, young and unsmiling, standing beside Warren Blackwell at a gallery opening. Warren's hand rested on her arm in the same way he used to touch Ava in public. Gentle enough for cameras. Firm enough for warning. On the back, Celeste had written one line. He thinks keeping the painting means keeping me. Ava read that line until the words stopped looking like words. 3 days later, a long conservation tube arrived at the cottage. No return address. Ava knew before she opened it. Her hands shook as she lifted the canvas free. The real door that never opened caught the afternoon light. Daisy stood beside her silent for once. "Mommy," she whispered, "that is the running lady." Ava nodded. "Yes. Is she still running?" Ava looked at the woman, the child, the bars of light that were not prison bars anymore now that the painting was out of Warren's house. "I do not know." Daisy leaned against her. "Maybe she found the door." Ava closed her eyes. That night she did not sleep at all. By dawn she knew. She drove back to Blackwater House with the painting wrapped in linen across the back seat, and Daisy singing softly to her rabbit. The gates opened before Ava pressed the call button. Roman must have told his men to let her in whenever she came. That should have annoyed her. It did not. Roman was in the studio. He turned when she entered, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked completely unguarded. Ava carried the wrapped canvas inside and set it on the easel. Neither of them spoke while she untied the linen. When the painting appeared, Roman went still. Not the stillness of control, the stillness of impact. He crossed the room slowly as if approaching too fast might make it vanish. His hand lifted then stopped before touching the canvas. His eyes moved over the woman, the child, the blue, the light. Ava stood beside him. "I did not bring it because you own it." Roman's voice was rough. "Ava, I brought it because she was your mother." He closed his eyes. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of everything he could not say to a dead woman, everything he had built in place of grief, everything he had nearly become trying to avenge her. When he opened his eyes, they were wet. He did not hide it. That moved Ava more than any confession could have. "I thought you left me with nothing," he said. "I left you with a choice." His eyes came to hers. "And now," Ava took a breath, "now I am making mine." Daisy appeared in the doorway holding Nora's hand. She saw Roman and smiled. "We came back." Roman looked at her. "I see that. Mommy brought the running lady." "Yes," he said softly. "She did." Daisy tilted her head. "Are you going to keep her?" Roman looked at Ava, then at the painting. Number. Ava's heart stopped. Roman lifted the canvas from the easel. "Come with me." They walked outside to the fire pit near the marsh. Vivian came out onto the back terrace, one hand pressed to her chest. Nora stood behind her with Daisy. Roman placed the painting upright against the stone edge. Ava stepped forward. "Roman, wait." He looked at the painted woman and child. "My mother spent her life trying to get through a door men kept closing." His voice was low, steady, torn open in places. "Blackwell turned her fear into a trophy. I turned her memory into a weapon. I thought if I took this back, I would be free of him." He looked at Ava. "But I was still letting him decide what mattered." Ava understood then. The painting had survived Warren. It had survived secrecy. It had survived grief. But keeping it as a relic of pain would build another room around the same old wound. Roman struck a match. Vivian made a broken sound from the terrace. Roman paused and looked at her. Vivian's face was wet with tears. After a long moment, she nodded. Roman touched the flame to the lower corner. The canvas caught slowly. Fire curled through the old varnish. The blue darkened, then brightened. The woman's coat became light. The child's hand disappeared into gold. Daisy whispered, "Is the lady gone?" Ava knelt beside her. "No, baby." Roman watched the flames. "She is free." Ash lifted into the marsh wind. Roman stood until the last piece collapsed. Then he turned to Ava. There was soot on his sleeve and grief in his face, but the old hunger for revenge was gone from his eyes. Ava walked to him. "I will not live in a cage," she said. "I know. Not even a beautiful one. I know. If I stay, I keep my name, my money, my work, my choices." Roman's gaze did not waver. "Yes. If I say no, you listen." His voice softened. "Every time." Daisy ran between them and wrapped one arm around Ava's leg and one around Roman's. "Are we having pancakes?" Ava laughed. It came out surprised and real. Roman looked down at Daisy. "I think Nora can be persuaded." Daisy beamed. "I am good at persuading." Roman's mouth curved. "I believe that." Later, after pancakes and too much syrup after Vivian took Daisy to see the garden, After Nora pretended not to cry while clearing plates, Ava returned to the studio. Roman had placed a blank canvas on the easel, no photograph beside it, no commission, no contract, only light. Ava stood before it for a long time. Roman remained in the doorway. "You do not have to paint here," he said. Ava touched the edge of the canvas. "I know. I can have a studio built at the cottage. I know. I am trying very hard not to sound like I am giving orders." She looked over her shoulder. "You are improving." His smile was faint. That sounded painful. It was. Ava turned to face him. "What do you want, Roman?" The question seemed to strike him more deeply than she expected. He walked into the room, but stopped several feet away. "A place beside you," he said. "Not possession. Not control. A request." Ava's chest tightened. "And Daisy?" His eyes softened. "Only what she gives me. Nothing I take." Ava nodded slowly. "That is the right answer. I have been practicing." "With who?" "Your daughter. She is ruthless." Ava smiled. Roman reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small velvet box. Ava stared at it. "Roman, I know." He lowered his gaze briefly. "Too soon. Too much. Very likely foolish. That is the most accurate thing you have ever said." He looked up. "But I have lived most of my life planning for war. I do not know how to plan for peace yet." His voice roughened. "I only know I want to learn it with you." Ava could not speak. Roman lowered himself to one knee, not like a conquered man, like a man who had finally understood that devotion was not weakness. "Ava Whitaker," he said, "I have no right to ask you for forever." "No," she whispered, "you do not." "I am asking anyway." Her eyes burned. He opened the box. The ring was not huge. Not the kind Warren would have chosen to impress a room. It was simple antique with a small green stone set between two diamonds. "It was my mother's," Roman said. "Vivian kept it. She said Celeste would have wanted it given to a woman who knew how to run and when to stop." Ava laughed through tears. "That sounds like Vivian." Roman looked up at her. "Marry me. Not today if you do not want. Not tomorrow. Not until you wake up one morning and the word yes feels like freedom." Ava stepped closer. The old fear was still there. Maybe it always would be in some small corner. But it no longer filled the room. She touched his face. "I have not decided if I like that yet." Roman's eyes warmed. "Number." Ava leaned down until her mouth hovered over his. "No," she whispered, "but I think I am going to." She kissed him. Roman rose slowly, one hand at her waist, the other careful at her back. He kissed her like a man who had learned the cost of taking and wanted finally to be invited. From the hallway, Daisy shouted, "Are the pancakes gone?" Ava pulled back laughing against Roman's mouth. Roman closed his eyes. "I should have feared her most." "You still should." Months later, the studio doors stood open to the salt air. Ava painted in morning light with Daisy beside her on the floor, both of them barefoot, both of them with blue on their hands. Roman sat near the window reading shipping reports he had ignored for 20 minutes because he kept watching them instead. On the easel was Ava's first original painting under her own name. Not a reproduction, not a hidden study, not a forgery sold under a dead woman's legend. A woman and a child stood before an open door. Beyond it waited no mansion, no road, no man with outstretched hands, only light. Daisy looked up from her paper. "Mommy, is she going?" Ava studied the woman on the canvas. Then she looked at Roman, who watched her with quiet, patient love. "No, baby," Ava said. "She is choosing."